It's rare, really rare, to find a leader as candid and communicative as Austin Bonta. I admire lots of things about the mayor. Most is willingness to speak to people. And when I say speak to people, that's in person, at meetings, in City Hall, on the street, at the park, on the phone, in making yourself incredibly approachable. And what that led to is a guy that most people, when he said, I'm going to run for election, said, excuse my French, no chance in hell, right?
Yeah.
And then he just walked every day, and he introduced himself to every person, and he went to every event, and he went to all the meetings, and he communicated. And like Andy, he did what many of us want people to do, which is just follow some common sense rules of how we're going to communicate and how we're going to manage a city. And though he's ruffled a couple feathers along the way, I think they've actually been good feathers to ruffle. And he does it all with a incredibly simple but effective view of the world. He looks at all the information. He trusts people with information. So he's not hesitant to give them the whole entire story. And then he'll sit in the office, he'll go to meetings, he'll be on Facebook, and he'll answer every single question. And for anybody that ever follows anything about Portage, if you're on Portage 411, for example, every question is questions that you couldn't even imagine someone would possibly ask. And then he's there to say, well, no, you can actually get the sugar-free mocha at Big B. They don't have one just with sugar. My point in all this is I love to see young energy come into politics. I love to see candor come into politics. I love to see a person that no matter what side of the issues they're on, they lead with honesty, integrity, and the fact that they work for the people that elect them. And for those reasons and more, I would like you to welcome me in congratulating Austin Bonta on the 2025.
Well, I will try to be brief, although I'm not always good at that. I got my start as a special education teacher, working in our Portage schools, and I could probably tell a whole bunch of, like, a million stories about what I learned being a special education teacher. Maybe the better way to say it is what I learned about how to be a good special education teacher, and then went and tried to bring that to the students. It was during my first year at Crispin Elementary School, I ended up with, if I remember right, I think we had 11 students all together in a classroom for reading, which is a lot of 5th grade special education students to have in a classroom for reading, especially when some of them were at a 1st grade reading level, and then some were at a 4th grade reading level, and the parents were, they liked having them in that classroom, even though they might have been able to be in 5th grade. When you've got a range of 11 students, it's not easy to teach them all at once in an hour block. And there was a point where I made the decision that as a class, when we kind of reached the next transition point in the year, we were going to do a chapter book. And I can't tell you the level of concern I got from other teachers in the school, including the homeroom teachers that these kids had, which was, Austin, you can't do a chapter book. You definitely can't do the same chapter book with the kids in this class. It's not going to work. You've got kids at a 1st grade reading level, and you've got kids at a 5th grade reading level. And to make a long story short, I mean, I could go into a lot of detail about how that went. The first thing we did was we found the book. It was a book called The One and Only Ivan. If you're looking for a children's book to read, I recommend it. It's a story about a gorilla that lives in a shopping mall who realizes he's not supposed to be there. But it's at a 3rd grade reading level, which was at a really good spot. I promise I'm going somewhere to be in there, because it actually matters a great deal to me. 3rd grade reading level. The chapters are usually about 3 pages long. I think the longest chapter was about 5 pages. Some chapters are just 1 page. And the biggest thing that, for me, when it came to planning that we were actually going to do a chapter book as one 5th grade class, it was going to be the fact that You had these different textures that was double spaced with the words. I could have the kids who are on the first or the second grade reading level reading along for a part, and then let the kids at the fourth grade, read with the class. We also had to do supplemental, so we kept working on other things with the kids. But to make a long story short, we got this chapter book done. And it was a huge deal because when you are a fifth grader, it doesn't matter what your reading level is. Nobody wants to have your friends in fifth grade watch you read Dr. Seuss. You might enjoy that. I still enjoy reading Dr. Seuss, but it meant the world to them that they were able to successfully read a chapter book as a class. We also started doing homework based on the book, and I remember having a parent come to me at a case conference meeting who could have cried because she saw her son doing homework, reading homework for the first time at their kitchen table, and it was taking him a little while, and she thought the teacher was crazy. This isn't say, you're doing actual homework on a chapter book, and he's like, Mom, don't worry, this isn't that bad, I can do it. And that changed her whole view of it. Later this year, so when Portage football was still going on, there was a boy of the football team who ran up. I was on the field with him because there was a game going on where they had the mayor on the field, and he said, this is the person who taught me how to read. And I was so inspired, but I was like, but I want to tell him I didn't teach you how to read. I mean, I was involved, but no, it's not by the time that you were out, and I'm glad you can read as well as you can, but it was the beginning to be part of that group that read this chapter book for the first time to realize that they could understand it. It was a goal that they could get done. They achieved it as a fifth grader, and I've gotten to meet a lot of kids and stayed with them. So flash forward a couple years later, and I'm running for mayor, and there are people telling me I'm going to lose this race because I was writing more or less novels on Facebook about how zoning works. And the big thing that people told me is, Austin, nobody is going to vote for someone based on zoning of land. That's the stuff that people like us behind closed doors worry about zoning and how you fix it and when you need special exceptions. And yet, we kept at it, we kept teaching people, and I think that Chris gave an amazing example before I came up, which is you're telling the story about the garbage. When you're trying to take a community and teach them how things work in a city, it's a lot of work at first. But just like teaching a group of fifth graders how to read a chapter book, or how to get through it, how to strategize, how to get homework done, they start teaching each other too. And so what's nice is when somebody gets on Portage 411 at 11:30 at night and says something like, why is my NIPSCO bill so high, I'm so mad at this mayor? You've got real example. You've got people, isn't it, Tom, they blame you for everything too, right? I learned from the best. Here's the thing, you got 25 people jumping on explaining how the IURC works. And I'm like, wait, they didn't know that a year ago. When you've got somebody who's going online and asking, well, why are they cutting down all these trees? This is ridiculous. They're cutting down all the trees. And you've got people explaining how private property works, and someone actually looks up the zoning of the land to explain what's probably going on there. That's an incredible thing when we educate our community. Somebody once asked John Dillinger why he robs banks, which was a pretty interesting question to ask John Dillinger, why do you rob banks? And he said, because that's where they keep the money. I don't know if I'd be here without social media and the ability to get a message across, but I didn't go on social media a lot until I got into politics. Because that's where the misinformation is, and that's where the information is. That's where rumors get started, it's where people get confused, and it's where mischievous people try to spread false info. For me to be able to teach the community how things really work, I would love it. I've tried over and over to get people to come to the open events we do at City Hall. The record so far is 12 people. And we're gonna keep working because every time somebody comes, if I have the opportunity to answer questions in person or educate them, that's great. But Portage seems to be a very online city. We're a very high energy city. And I think the thing we proved is that you can trust people with information. If you take time to teach people how local government works, they learn. And they don't necessarily agree with every decision that gets made, but they start to see that there really is a process for how a coffee shop gets built on an open piece of land. And one of the things I'll always remember was before I was mayor, but when I was on the plan commission, because I started off as a plan commission member trying to explain how things work. I remember somebody saying something like, this was also online, you guys in politics, you don't understand like what us regular people, live like. And I'm like, yes I do. I live off of Mulberry Avenue in Portage. I get about a $300 stipend from being on the plan commission. I promise, we're in the same town and I know exactly what it's like to live here. But I think that the opportunity to engage with people online and in person and explain how the government processes work, I think it's come a long way for building trust in our community and for people to see that, yeah, the mayor really does live here. I want to thank Chris so much for just for everything that he's done to encourage that positive environment online and that positive environment in our community. We don't live in a time where people want the public to be terribly well informed, because being informed and understanding how things work, it tends to make it harder to get angry. And that's kind of what the whole machine that we're living through right now is built on, is this anger. But the more that people actually know, I think that that's better. And the more people know that you can get the answer and there's people that can get an answer for you, I think the better. I told Chris when he told me I was one of the people receiving this award, and congratulations to everyone else who's receiving this today. Thank you all for everything that you do for your communities and our whole Calumet region community. I told him, I promise if I do anything too crazy or controversial between now and this date, feel free to quietly take it away. And Chris said, Mayor, there's nothing you could do that would be that crazy. And I tried, or God tried. I could not imagine all the different things that happen between then and now, but to put it simply, the message continues on, the mission continues on, because positivity is not about believing that everything is good and hunky-dory. Positivity is about believing that things can get better and will get better if we work on it. And no one has been saying that longer than Chris and the people at GreatNewsLife. So thank you so much.